Alrighty, welcome to another episode of Time Out with Coach Cam. It's your host Cam Chancellor, and I have an exciting guest today. It's Fox Sports One's own Rob Parker. How are you?
Coach Cam, what's happening? How you doing? Thanks for having me.
No problem. I want to say thank you for joining the show today. And before we really get into talking sports, I do want to ask, like, for someone with who's trying to start a podcast, get it out there, or even the upcoming journalists. What advice would you give them, and working their way up and trying to get to that point, possibly where you are.
Well, mostly is you got to put in the work. A lot of people, you see people on TV and radio shows, whatever. They've done a lot of work to get there, to build
Mhm.
up your credibility. So you got to be willing to put in the work, and also trying to look at it from this standpoint. You
Mhm.
don't want to be like the crowd. You want to take a deeper look, uh, and have a unique opinion on some of these things. And I mean, to say the Kansas City Chiefs are a great football team, and so is Patrick Mahomes. Everybody says that. You know what I mean? So what would make that unique about it? So taking a look
Right.
at things from a more unique perspective is very important. I think if you want to, you know, differentiate yourself from everybody else. But most of all, it's about practicing your craft, spending time doing it, learning to get better. Watch your shows back. What did you do right? What did you do wrong? What sounded right? What didn't sound right? What looked right? What didn't look? It's a lot to finally get comfortable in front of the camera and behind the mic. So it doesn't come overnight.
Gotcha, and that's something definitely I'll take that advice moving forward because it's something I definitely want to keep growing and keep doing this because it's fun to do. It really is. But you're right. You got to put in the work. You got to study your stuff and make sure you're articulating the right things. Now, moving forward into some sports questions. Now I've watched the show and the Odd Couple, and Brady won his seventh ring. He won his seventh ring, and you kind of compared it more towards comparing him to more towards Robert Horry more so than Michael Jordan. Can you further explain that for the people out there? How are you kind of leaning towards Tom Brady being towards like that Robert Horry role more towards Michael Jordan?
Well, I mean, in Tom Brady's career, I mean, he's the most accomplished quarterback, but I don't think he's the GOAT. He's been on some teams that had unbelievable circumstances that have happened in their favor. Defensively as well, Tom Brady won his sixth Super Bowl in a game which he didn't throw a touchdown. Do you remember that against the Rams?
Yeah, yep,
Okay,
against the
so
Rams.
he gets credit for he's the greatest quarterback. He won a Super Bowl without throwing a touchdown. The first Super Bowl, if you remember, also the whole postseason, Tom Brady only had one touchdown in that whole playoff run. That was the
Yep,
tough rule with the Raiders.
yep.
There was the interception by Russell Wilson in that game. Atlanta's up 28-3 in that game. Their defense didn't give up a point in the second half. Again, even in this Super Bowl, the to me, the story of the Super Bowl was that defense held Patrick Mahomes to 0 points. That
Yep.
so it's not that Tom Brady didn't do his part or whatever, but to pin it totally on Tom Brady is ridiculous. And I think that's where I differentiate from myself from everybody else, where they don't care what if this was another quarterback who, who wasn't Tom Brady and they won some of these Super Bowls the way that they won, they would be talking about defensive players and not Tom Brady.
Now I kind of agree with you there because a lot of people say, well, he let them down the field on Vinatieri kicks, but if Vinatieri doesn't make them,
Thank you.
we're not talking about Tom Brady as this goat, because kickers we see kickers miss 35 yarders, 30 yarders off the upright, and you're like, wow, the quarterback did his job, but the kicker didn't complete the kick, and it's an
Thank you.
afterthought.
You know what? Can I give you this? Jim Kelly, the first Super Bowl when the Buffalo Bills lost four straight Super Bowls, they had the Giants beat, and they
Hmm.
missed the field goal, right? And
Yep,
and they never recovered from that. And Jim Kelly never got credit, right? He was in position. He missed a chip shot, and
exactly.
that Super Bowl. And that's my point: is that he had one of the best kickers in Adam Vinatieri. also his defense and some of the Super Bowls I'm talking about, the greatest show on turf, the first Super Bowl they won, they held that team to like 16 points or whatever. That team was scoring 35 points a game.
Yep.
So all I'm saying is when they beat Carolina, do you remember what happened at the end of the game? The kicker kicked the
The
ball
kick
out of bounds.
gave it to him at the 40.
I mean, these are just facts. I'm not saying that Tom Brady's a bum or he can't play, but to pin everything and say he's the reason that that he's won 7 Super Bowls is just not legit.
And you know what? I agree with you. There. Like I say, he's a great quarterback, but gold is kind of far. We just count rings at this point. But if you look at what happened and transpired, how he got those rings, you got to kind of put a look, not a dent in his legacy, but you kind of scale it back a little bit from the greatest of all time. Now to keep kind of track on the Patriots, they spent a lot of money in this initial free agents in this free agent period. Um, Now, to me, it seemed like they just spent money just to spend it. I mean, I know a couple of moves that they made were definitely upgrades. I love the tight end Smith that he got from the Titans. What do you think about their moves in the offseason? Are you thinking they're better with these moves, or is it kind of like lateral moves? And do you see them back in the playoffs, perhaps?
No, I mean they won 9 games last year. I mean 7 games last year. Think about they had 6 players who opted out of COVID, 4 starters. Uh, Name the players Cam had on the offense, right? I mean they struggled big time.
Mm,
They added some players there, receivers and tight ends, which they needed, and they spent some money which they had available, and that was part of the reason with stepping away from Tom Brady and opening up some things. So no, they won 7 games with that roster, and now what they have. I mean, to me, they easily could swing that 7 wins to 9 wins next year, and that's all it would take: 9-7 or 10-6. So they're not that far away. And obviously, Cam, I think he still was recovering with his shoulder. He
hmm
didn't look like he could throw the ball that well. I mean, obviously, he's still a threat at the goal line and running the football. If he improves at all, they got a shot. They got a shot to make the playoffs.
Yeah, yes, I think they do as well. Cam Newton, what really hurt them, honestly, I thought was the COVID break that he had. Once he had COVID, they were two
Get
and
that
one.
right. Don't forget they had Seattle beat, and he was at the
Yeah,
1 yard line, and he didn't get in. That was a turning point. That was a game they should have won. If you remember, Cam marched him down the field at the end, and was at you give him that try at the 1 yard line 10 times, 9 times he's going to make it. He didn't make it, and then
yeah.
right after that, I think a week or two later, he had COVID, and then he came back was never really the same.
Yep, yep. Because I seen where he was on "I Am an Athlete" with Brandon Marshall and those guys, and he was stated like he was learning the offense, and then COVID hit, and the offense kept excelling and kept learning, kept building on top of each other, and he couldn't really get reps because he wasn't in the building, and it just kind of never materialized for him. So I can see that. I do see him a little better. I just want to see how it all comes together because it's really on Cam Newton to really come and really to perform well. He has to complete the throws, especially down the field, but he does got more weapons. The tight ends really help in that Patriots offense. So we're definitely going to see what he's going to what he's going to do moving forward. Now, LeBron James is out. Definitely he twisted the high ankle sprain yesterday against the Hawks. Now is now with him being out indefinitely, Anthony Davis being out indefinitely. Are the Lakers? Do you still see the Lakers perhaps getting healthy enough to make it out the West, or do we have another challenger there that could dethrone these guys and be a new representative in the NBA Finals?
Yeah, I didn't have them coming out of the West anyway. I didn't think they were going to repeat. I had the Clippers.
Mm,
I know they stumbled last year. They were up 3-1. They lost to Denver. They're in the top 4 in the West, and I just think another year together with those guys
hmm
and will be fine in the coaching change and bringing in Tyron Lue and whatnot. So I had the Clippers against the Nets coming into the season, um, and I'm sticking with my pick there. We'll see. I mean, this is obviously a blow, to be missing these 2 guys. Will it be enough for them to come back at the end to try to get it together? I still think that they're missing. They don't have any rim protectors. They made a
Mm-mm.
mistake giving up Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. I think that giving up both of them, maybe one, but they gave up both of them. And I don't know. I don't think it's the same team with Rondo. That they had a year ago. Sometimes you get a group. It comes together, and you got to be careful not to tinker too much. And I think they tinkered too much.
I think so too. I think them getting Mark Gasol was just definitely a step that that helped them take a step backwards. Him in the pick and roll is just not ideal defensively. And they want him to stretch the floor, but making a couple threes a game is really not going to make or break. A defense, stepping out there on him to spread the floor. I think the Lakers are in trouble. I think the Lakers are in trouble. The Clippers, they scare me though. Because they're so inconsistent at times, and I don't know what I'm gonna get from Paul George. That's the scary part. I love Paul George. I love his game. I just don't know what I'm gonna get from him.
I mean, that's all fair, but that's why the Lakers celebrated last year when the Clippers got knocked out. They knew what kind of a matchup it could be if they would have won. I'm just saying, at some point, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard choked last year. I mean, you never saw that. He played terrible in Game 7.
Hmm.
I just don't think that we're going to see that again. I think that those guys are so talented, and they'll get it together. All they got to do is get over the hump. I know that franchise hasn't been able to get to the Western Conference Finals, but I think they have a shot. I'm still not buying into Utah, and I'm still not buying into Phoenix. So I think the Clippers still, if they stay in the top four, they will have a golden opportunity to get out of the West.
And quick question: it's a wild card team that I always go in the West, and I always bring up Portland. What do you think about them? Do you think that's a team that could possibly make it out the West, where Dame Lillard can get hot at any time?
Yeah, I'm not buying them either. I mean, a couple of years ago, they were in the Western Conference Finals and got swept, if you remember.
Yes, that's
So
indeed.
I mean, they're a good team. And I know Dame Lillard can be that guy. I saw what they did to New Orleans. I'm down 17 with 5 minutes to go. I mean, that was an impressive comeback.
Mhm.
So are they a threat? Absolutely, they're a threat. But I still don't. I would see you know the Lakers, Clippers, and I would even throw in Utah before I would throw in Portland.
Mm, okay. Now, I know you mentioned like the Nets possibly. You got the Nets in the finals. Now, is this for sure? What about if Like, we don't know the status of KD really. This hamstring.
And win 14 out of 16 without Katie.
Yeah, I've seen it, but in the playoffs, it's a little different. Different, I think. Right? I think you need that set
I'm not
6 foot
saying
11.
win. I'm not going to say they're going to win without him.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no indication that he's not coming back, and there's no reason to rush him. They're winning. Let the guy get fully healthy. He could easily integrate. We've seen a transformation by James Harden, who's playing some of his
Yes.
best basketball. Okay, facilitating, doing whatever. The other night, they were down to Indiana 40 to 25 in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
40-point triple double. No Kyrie in the game. It was just him. Kyrie and him work great together. I've watched them night after night. And then you add KD to the mix. How many games could you lose? You can't beat that team 4 times in a 7-game span. It's not possible. And they don't have to. People talking about defensively. That's all nonsense. You can't touch anybody defensively in the NBA. So you can't really stop anybody. All you need to do is make them earn their shots. And you know what I mean? But you can't really stop anybody. All they have to do is be in the middle of the pack defensively, and they'll win a championship. That's how much firepower they have. And then if you look at Brooklyn, they don't even they pass the ball to the other guys as well who are open, and they got a lot of shooters on that team. It ain't
Mm-hmm.
just those 3 guys. Other guys are getting off as well. It's an incredible team, and Blake Griffin hasn't even played yet. So wait, you know what I mean? And I'm
Yeah.
Blake Griffin being your fourth option. I mean, hello.
Right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it was amazing to me how people say, when they got together that it wouldn't work. I'm like, how is it not gonna work?
Well, that's
And
just people not being honest about basketball. And Antonio Daniels comes on our radio show,
Mhm.
and he always says it's an arms race. They got more arms. Like
Yeah,
it's an arms race. Think of it that way.
Yep, yep, absolutely. And I'll just touch on this comment here. James Harden, a regular season player, playoffs he chokes. Now, I mean, you're looking
You
at James
you
Harden,
can
who's
use
willingly.
that narrative now. Let's wait till the play. I mean, you can use that narrative now. I get it because of what's happened. But if you really think Kyrie knocked down one of the biggest shots in NBA history to complete a 3-1 comeback, and Durant's won two MVPs over LeBron James and was 4-1 against LeBron James teams, and you really think that that's going to that James Harden's going to choke with this team and with the talent that he has around him. I'm just not buying that.
Yes, I agree with you fully. And the last question, before I let you go here, Rob, the Boston Celtics. Now, it just seems like, they've been underachieving this year. And there's been a lot of questions surrounding Brad Stevens. Is he the guy to move this team or get this team over the hump? Now, how do you feel about Brad Stevens? Do you think his time is up in Boston? Do you think they need to look for a different coach and move in a different direction there?
Yeah, there's something wrong there. They got way too much talent to be this bad. I just and maybe there's a respect factor. Maybe he's good at coaching players, like Volkswagens, not BMWs. You know what I mean? And he can get
Hmm.
both out of guys like that. Because remember, Kyrie was there. Imagine that Celtics team with Kyrie still there. Everybody wanted him out of Boston. And now look at where he's developed into the player that he has at 27 years old, right? I think
Yep.
he's taking a big step. So maybe he can't coach those guys. Something's wrong there. I don't know if Danny Ainge wants to admit it. He's given Brad Stevens all these contracts and this money and stuff like that without winning, but they have underachieved, and we'll see if they get knocked out in the first round or something. And I'm expecting them to make the playoffs, but if they don't or they get knocked out in the first round, you might have to rethink that, and it might be time that to get somebody who can take them to the next level.
Yeah, and I look at Brad Stevens. He's a great coach, but sometimes I kind of put a little bit on Danny Ainge. It's because I thought he had a lot of time, a lot of chances to pull the trigger on one of these big name guys. Maybe a Harden, an Anthony Davis, and he just didn't bring them in. And I understand. I love the young talent that they have, but in the NBA, I feel like it's a star-driven league. The more stars you have, the better you have a chance at winning the championship. I
That's
mean,
why
how do you feel about that?
we talked about Brooklyn. They got
Yep,
three stars.
yep, yeah. This is like it's an arms race, and I just feel like it was too many times they sat on their hands, and they had a chance to make. They had a boatload of picks they could have got rid of and got somebody a star, and they just didn't do it. And I think right now is where they kind of regret that where they're at in this position because now you're looking at they're hovering around 500. Coach voice may be getting stale, and now you're looking at them in the middle of the pack in the East, and we're not even really talking about them as a main threat to come out the East, and they should be.
No, and it's really about Philly, Milwaukee, and Brooklyn. Those are the three teams, to be honest, uh,
Yep,
that are there. When Boston's been to the Eastern Conference Finals, right? Two of the last 3 years,
yep,
nothing to show for it. So we'll see how that all plays out. One last thing I want to mention: my new baseball website, which
yeah.
debuted April 1st. It's called MLB Bro, and we cover black and brown baseball players. This will be a site talking about the current black baseball players in the game and also uh, give you information and history about the black players from yesteryear and their impact on the game. I'm really excited about this site, MLBbro.com, April 1st, opening day. And there'll be baseball coverage of black players like you've never seen before. So please support it. Go to the website and check it out.
All right, y'all heard him. MLBpro.com.
Be bro, BRO.
Bro. All right, MLBbro.com. MLBbro.com. Like I say, he's gonna cover all the African American players and everything like that. That's something I'm gonna tune into because I love baseball and I love watching. I'm a big Reds fan, but but definitely I want to tune into that because it's definitely time to kind of get you know uh, you know African Americans and touch that fan base as far as with
All
baseball.
about a game, man. Look at the
Yeah.
record. Let's not kid ourselves. Some of the greatest players who ever played baseball are black. We've
Yep.
we've gotten away from that with all these AAU coaches telling kids they can't play other sports and they can only play basketball. All these great athletes who have gone by the wayside. Everybody can't make the NBA. They only give out 30 guaranteed contracts every year. And all
Yep.
these kids pour all this energy into one sport. All the greatest athletes played multi sports. All the great athletes. Kyler Murray, baseball player, quarterback. Russell Wilson, baseball player, quarterback. I could go on and on. Why they let these AAU coaches talk them into only playing one sport is bad.
Yeah, I'm an AAU coach, but I say play multiple sports because you look up the percentages. College coaches want kids that play multiple sports, so I do not discourage that at all. You play
Good.
multiple sports, that's fine.
That's great, Coach Cam. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of
Yes.
coaches selfish, and it ain't right for the kids. There's baseball scholarships out there all over. Michigan this past year was in the College World Series. Michigan had 8 black players on their team. I mean,
Mm.
that's what I'm talking about. Baseball's done a lot. There's a lot of young black kids coming through the system, but we need to get back to playing all sports and just give yourself an option. Kyler Murray was the first player ever drafted in the first round in baseball and football. It's never happened. And
Yeah, that's amazing.
years ago, that happened 2 years ago. Okay.
Yep. Yep, and that's amazing. But I know my time is up with you, Mr. Parker. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
All right, man. Thank you so much, and stay well and continue success.
You too, man. We appreciate it. I keep listening to you. All right, that was it. That was Rob Parker. Definitely, blessed enough for him to join my show, drop some education on me and how to improve myself, improve my podcast, and just give his knowledge in general. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Time out with Coach Cam. We're gonna continue to try to bring guests like that. We out.